We're spreading gems, not germs. One take. Yeah, Carter my last name. What up, Sean and Dwayne? With that blood in my vein. Boy going insane.
And don't be afraid to engage, ask questions. Like that's what we're here for. So we try to make it feel, real laid back, real homey, so that we can like really get to the meat and the information. I want everyone to be able to walk away with elevated information after this. So welcome. So this is Urban Entrepreneurship 101, and everyone welcome. So today we're going to go over pretty much this business process, and we're going to look at it from like a bird's eye view. So how does it look like a roadmap for when you're in the ideation phase and then you go all the way to exit? So we're going to go over 6 different phases of your business and what that looks like. The first 2 phases we're going to spend a lot of time in. Not only is that because we specialize in that area, so we take in businesses that are in the ideation phase, really focusing on that this year. But also, when you start to get into that growth phase, into that scale phase, it looks a lot different for depending on what type of business that you have and for different individuals. So we're going to speak to that in particular in like more of a holistic, general way. But this is really like the steps of if you decide that you want to go into entrepreneurship. So I recommend taking notes. We are going to plug some resources, and after everyone will get an email with different resources that they can take part in. But what I recommend is as we go through these different stages, you take notes, because these are like, it's really like a general, like step by step of how to do business and what stages, what you should be doing at each stage of your business so that you can increase your chances of success. So if you have any questions, I would love for you all to write out your questions. The slides are kind of broken up in a phase style. And so after each phase, we will go over questions about that particular phase. And then in general, if you want to get into a deeper discussion, where we have some time at the end to do like an overall Q&A. So just, identify things that you want to learn. I did do we did a survey. Mm-hmm. And so we did get some questions. So we'll talk about those questions at the end as well. I feel like I got to everything. Did I?
Well, also, I think we should mention this is a precursor to our upcoming accelerator. We'll be having a couple more workshops prior to the launch of the accelerator, and we will be putting out information about the accelerator. Since there are a few slots left, we'll be emailing everyone that signed up for these workshops. So if you want to fill out the application for that, feel free to do so. And if we can't get you this time, we'll get you another time. We'll work it out. At least we'll get you into this network, this loop of information, so we can start sharing resources.
Yeah. And I'm really excited because this year, our accelerator, so last year we kind of did like a test accelerator to see, what would the engagement be like from a online perspective. And so this year, we did decide that we're going to do a hybrid experience. At the end of the accelerator, we are going to have a pitch competition where we will be rewarding each business with something. So everyone will walk away with something, whether it's a service or some money. Everybody will walk away with something. And then the last thing, really quick. So next week, we do have 2 other workshops that are going on. On Tuesday, we have our Talk That Talk series. And that is a class that goes over like the language that you should know that's important when you're a business owner. And so I know that oftentimes, especially because, we cater to those Black and brown businesses, it can feel, for me, it felt a little bit, I felt nervous. I felt like I wasn't qualified to be in the room sometimes because I didn't know some of the language. And so on Tuesday, we will talk about the language that you should know that's important in business. And then on Thursday, we have a really cool series. It's called The Color of Business. And so in there, we will address, that's a 3-hour workshop. And so we'll address the barriers that oftentimes Black and Latinx businesses face, and then how to overcome them on a mental, holistic, and business perspective. So Yes. All right. I know this is like the not fun part that people usually don't like, but now we want to know about you all again. We can stop sharing. We want to know about you guys. And so we want to hear, like who you are. Love for you to turn your camera on. But if you feel like, okay, I was not expecting to be on camera, completely understand. But tell us about, yourself. What made you register for the workshop today? And then what is your business? So give us like a quick overview of what your business is. So I'm just going to go down the line and I am going to start. I'm going to start with Devontae.
Oh, did we catch him off guard?
I know Devontae's like, I was not ready for this. Okay. So we'll come back to Devontae. You go ahead.
If you're ready, you can put your hand up and that'll be a good sign for us and we'll get you in.
Shelby looks ready. Shelby looks ready.
Go ahead, Shelby.
So my name's Shelby Briggs. What made me register for the events is I work for the youth, so that's one thing. And then obviously this is some good vital information. I don't have a business, but I'm in the stage of my life where I'm thinking possibly maybe down the line, but I'm excited to see other people and their business ideas because it may inspire me to cultivate my own.
Yay.
Awesome. All right, let's see who we have next.
Well, now we have to go with Alicia because she volunteered.
Someone else wants to go.
She volunteered Shelby.
I'm good at that. I don't know if my internet is lagging or if it's you guys, but I'm going to share. So my name, this is weird. Is it showing on your screen where it's like me really small and then black everywhere else?
Right now you're coming in clear for us, but I did get a notification a second ago that there might be an internet connection there.
All right. Okay, cool. All right. I'll just go. All right. Well, my name is Alicia Gregory and I signed up tonight. I saw the post on LinkedIn and I've been learning more about the U. I think it's really great. And I've been working on, I always have ideas, always. But I've been working on a concept for the past like 2.5 years called Rise Up Communities. And yeah, so I'm just like looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to share tonight.
Awesome.
Right.
I can go.
Okay.
I turned on my camera for a second, but I'm gonna turn it back off. I've been home with my kid all day, so it's a little rough over here. But my name is Tiara. I actually just signed up to join a few hours ago. I was on Instagram and I saw that it had moved to virtual, and I was like, you know what? Seems like a good day. I actually just got laid off from my corporate job a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
You know what? It's actually like the universe and a blessing because I've been saying like, I'm done with this. It's time for me to leave. It's time for me to move on. And I saw myself just like rage quitting, like running out the door. But, the universe and God gave me something better. So I actually have a little bit of free time where I can't work, but, and still bringing money in and all that stuff. So, I've dedicated myself to starting to work on a business. It's something I've been saying that I wanted to do, for years. It's been very heavy on my heart, I would say, for like it's so funny it all works, but like especially the last few months. I want to do an event space, and I have this idea to do these like super curated events. So I see it being like, hey, it's your birthday, like you're gonna come and you can have this event, get dressed up, bring your girls, and it's gonna be like, to the nines, as well as some like other things. So really just saying that one of the first things I want to do is, start networking, as well as, joining some events and just kind of learning what what the steps are and kind of going for it. So I'm here today. So it all kind of worked out. And then I started like looking at the Instagram and researching the U, and I was like, oh, this is great. This is, kind of like everything's kind of falling in place. So I'm excited to be here.
We definitely have to connect with you.
Yeah, for sure. And congratulations.
Thank you.
For not being employed right now. I know that might sound weird, but
I know it does. People are like
things like
freaking
this
out.
and pandemic and other things have really helped people kind of just say, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Let's do it. Let's start.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, why not? You know what I mean? I worked for that company for 10 years and put in a lot, and for them to be like, okay, well, we're just gonna eliminate your role is kind of like eye-opening. So I'm like, hey, I wasn't even happy doing what I was doing. So I know I'll be happier in the past doing, something for myself. So
yeah,
you know what? I'm like, it's time.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Ski, who are you calling on next?
Let's see, is Devontae ready or?
Hey, I'm back.
All right. Welcome, Devontae.
So, hey, everybody, I'm Devontae Goins. I won't have my camera right now because I look a little bit erroneous here working from home today remotely. But I run the only Black news network in town, the Unbossed Network, and I also get the privilege and honor of working with Shelby Lowe and Ski every day and helping them run the facilities of the U. And I'm actually here today because, believe it or not, we do a variety of different things here at the U, and I never get the opportunity because my schedule is typically too busy to see how this arm of the business really works. So I'm really just here for support, and as well as not just to support the team, but here to learn a few things as well. So.
Yes, awesome. Well, we're glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Devontae. So for everyone's situational awareness, there's actually a couple branches in our overall business. We have the university branch, which is what we're engaging with right now. And then we also have a physical studio. It's a kind of a creative space. And Devontae kind of runs that portion of it, facilitates that portion of it. So like you said, we never really get to cross over. So this is great. I'm glad you came out, Devontae, and let's get that ball rolling, right? We'll help each other strengthen our businesses together. Awesome. All right, your turn, Lo. Who are you calling on?
I feel like Jamie because I've seen that name before.
Are you with us, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'll turn my video for a little bit. So I'm in my room, so sorry. For a while. Hi. So
hey, Jamie.
I did you guys class before. I think it was called the Urban Boot Camp or something like that. And then I remembered everything, but then I forgot everything. And then I was just like, oh, whatever. So I'm glad you guys are back started. About me, so I'm a compliance officer for a finance firm. I'm still in the ideal stage of my business. I've been in the ideal stage for like 2 years now. I want to help women realistically and accountability wise raise their credit score. I've helped my friends and family, a couple coworkers, and my dad. So now I've kind of gotten the confidence that I can do it. And yeah, that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. Welcome back. It's really good to see you.
It is great to see you again. And it's just like reading a book, right? You'll read a book more than once because you're going to pick up different things each time. So we're really grateful that you're back and you're bringing that experience with you as well to share with the rest of the community.
All right. I think we got two more.
Sierra and Q&A.
Sierra.
Hi, I'm Sierra. I'm not going to turn my camera on because I'm actually deep conditioning my hair right now. So camera off. But I am here. I signed up for the class tonight because I'm just really wanting to learn more about getting started in the business world. I recently got my license as a notary. So I am looking to start a mobile notary business. And so I'm really just trying to figure out how I get started and where I go next.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. I think lastly, we have Gabriella.
Hi. Yes, my name is Gabriella, and I am starting a skincare business. I I actually do have a few ideas that I really want to kick off. And because it's a consumer business, and with the pandemic and everything that happened, I decided that I want to still, like, if I could locally do pop-up shops, I would. But also I want to do an e-commerce business. And so that's where I'm kind of stuck at right now, is to figure out how to register it as both e-commerce and like a pop-up shop, if so. And the legal side of things is really what I want to learn about. Because I know that, like, when taxes come up and everything, and you don't write things off right, that like you end up having to pay the IRS back more, or things as far as you keeping your license for the continuing year can be revoked. So that's what I want to learn about more. Also, I just want to learn too how to market up, since I will be in the e-commerce business.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm really excited about today because, yeah, I mean, we're about to go over all of the different stages. I think that it will shine some light regarding, some of the next steps for everyone. I know that when I started, there's some real quick background by myself. I was doing branding and marketing and doing it on a contracting level. And then when I started and decided, like, okay, I really want to scale this business, there's a lot of steps that I had missed. And I had jumped right into how to market myself, how to get more customers. And I realized that, and one thing that we're going to talk about is that business doesn't have to be hard. And once you do the foundational things, the money will come, the customers will come. That's a given. You have to make sure that you're doing these foundational things that will set you up for success. So a lot of times when I'm talking to, our customer base or our clients, and they come in and they're like, okay, the first thing I need to do is I need to get more funding, or I need to get more customers. And to be honest, that necessarily might not be it. The first thing would be, developing a business model that's competitive, because then if you focus on the business model, the customers will come. So you don't even have to make it a goal of, I want to scale my business to this point, because you'll already be in that phase. So I'm really excited to go over the stuff that we're going to go over today. Again, if you have any questions, we'll take some time at the end of each phase to answer any questions about that particular phase. Again, last thing, Ski and I, we're not an expert in every area of business. It's kind of weird. We have an entrepreneur support organization, but that's why we rely on our resources in our what is it called? Community, our community, to fill in those gaps. So there's certain areas that we are very well versed and experts in, but then anything else, we'll make sure that you all have the resources to be able to get questions that we can't get answered for you. So that's about it.
So a little about me. I celebrated a side hustle for many years. I was actually in the Air Force as a career. But while I was I was always doing the side job, whether it was car stereo installation, website building, a lot of tech geek stuff. And I thought, I've got a little thing going on here. But when I retired, I decided, okay, I'm going to make it serious. I'm really going to go out and do it. I'm going to register the business. I hadn't registered the business all those years. I had just decided I was going to register it. And then I'm going to get a team together. And when I started looking at all the stages that were really necessary, it was just overwhelming. And I just completely failed at that launch for that thing. But as fate would have it, I had two other friends that wanted to start a business around that same time. And that business ended up being super successful. And we went on to an exit, which is somebody acquired us, bought our business from us 2 years after we started, which then put me in a position where I wanted to kind of, share the experiences that I personally had with others to make it not take as long as it took for me to get to where we got. So that's just a brief snapshot, and we'll get into weeds a little more about ourselves and experiences and other things like that as we go along. But really excited to have you all here, and looking forward to help raise some awareness and help you guys save a little time in your efforts and save some of the missteps that we took along the way.
Yeah, for sure. So,
all right, ready to start to share? All right.
All right. So phase one is the ideation phase, which is funny because that's what Jamie said that she's been in. And to be honest, the ideation phase, it ranges. There is no time frame because you'll think of an idea, you might want to change it. And because the ideation phase can be so long, you could have so many developmental aspects to it. You don't know. So how do you know that you're in the ideation phase? Well, first, you haven't launched yet. So that's one clear indication. You are not really clear about what your MVP is. So that's your minimal viable products, which we'll talk about shortly. But you're not clear about, what it is that you're doing. You don't have clarity. You're still learning if entrepreneurship is for you. And then maybe you have launched, okay? So I know a lot of people who have launched, but they're technically still in their ideation phase. And so this is like you're running your business, but you're like, I have no idea what is going on. And I'm like flying by the seat of my pants or whatever it's called. Every single day. And so things to know about this phase, determining the strength of your business model. So this phase really helps set the tone for your business model. It's often skipped over. A lot of people literally I don't need to do this and jump straight to the launch phase. You take off what I would like you all to do is take off your current lens of your entrepreneurship, of what you think entrepreneurship is and your previous experiences with it, and really think about, okay, how can I apply this to what I'm doing right now? And realistically, it's okay if you thought that you were in growth phase and you're really like, okay, I need to go back to pre-launch phase and kind of clean some things up. It's completely okay. So just take off where you're at in your current experiences so that you can really gain a lot of what it is that we're going to be going over today. And then some organizations that are really, really helpful during this time when you're in your ideation phase is our organization. So soft plug. And then this organization called Give Back Hack. So if you're, thinking about going into social enterprise, they're a great organization that will deal with you on the actual idea phase and help you get to that launch phase. So.
All right. So the first thing is that you really want to consider when you're thinking about, is this a business or is it just a hobby? You have to ask yourself, you've got this idea, but do you have enough business experience or any business experience? Do you have the stability? Right? Is it the right time in life to actually take on this endeavor and try this? And sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay, right? You don't want to force it. You definitely don't want to add the complications of starting a business along with some other complication that may be going on in your life. Maybe it's the health of a loved one, childbirth, anything. There's so many different things that kind of make us have to adult and live. And it might be best to continue to plan out, right? To continue to think about, do your research, and other things we'll cover leading up to this. Before you leading up to starting your business and take advantage of that time. Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? It's the craziest thing in the world. People say things like, I've never known anybody that worked 80 hours so they didn't have to work 40 hours for someone else. Or there's just so many things that come with it. You have to make sure you have a really strong why that's going to support your passion and your drive through the process. So I think, let's go to the chat here, and why don't you guys just type in what you think some of the key characteristics that make up a business owner. What are some of those things that we need as business owners to be successful?
And Alicia, you're completely right. It's definitely hard to determine, what is the healthy pushing, what is the and unhealthy forcing of your business. I always tell people that it is really hard to run a business when you are under a tremendous amount of stress. And so if you don't have stability, it's going to be hard to make clear choices because you're going to be sometimes reacting off of scarcity. So where we want everyone, what are some characteristics that you all feel like, if you could put them in the chat, what are some characteristics that you all feel like make up a good business owner?
Maybe let them come off, sisters.
Flexible,
Two of us, yeah.
dedicated,
Oh,
resiliency.
yeah. There it is. I see it now.
Yeah. Resiliency, definitely. Flexible, dedicated, confidence, integrity, and patience. Oh yeah, patience. Critical thinking. That's major.
Yeah.
That's major. Any other ones? Accountable. Yep. Oh goodness, accountability. Woof. Don't even get me started.
All right, so we had some previously listed in our slide as well. Obviously, you guys nailed a couple of those. Desire, passion. I think everybody that has their own business is passionate about the thing that they're creating.
Yeah.
The trick is to be passionate enough to do all the other things that aren't the core of what it is you're actually providing as a service or a product.
And one of the things, real quick before we move on, when it comes to passion, really, you have to have passion, but you also have to have discipline. And I think that's one thing that's not up there. And so having discipline, because you can't operate your business off of emotion. I'm not always passionate about coming to work. You know, I'm not always passionate about I love what I do, but you know, sometimes I'm like, man, today I really just want to stay in bed. And then you have to be accountable because you don't have someone who is forcing you to get out of bed. So having that discipline of following through when you need to. Being able to adapt, that is definitely something. So all of these are really good. We can.
Showing up. I like to say showing up a lot in all areas. It's just gotta show up.
Yes, for sure. All right. So now we're really getting into the gist of what you all like. This is where you all should really start to take notes. So is your idea good enough? And I see this oftentimes where people have ideas, and because it's your idea, sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, I love this idea. I love this idea. And so you have to start to ask yourself, you know, do you have an idea that people are willing to pay for? Like, are you solving a problem? Is this needed in the market? Can you successfully provide this service or product for your audience? So I'm going to pick on Jamie really quick. She talks about how she wants to help individuals with their credit and improve their credit. That's absolutely great. Thing is, you're only one person. So you have a cap on how many people you will be able to service. So can you successfully, you know, build a model where you're sustaining that? What happens if, God forbid, you know, you become ill? You know, how does that impact your business when you are a solopreneur? Can you successfully provide that experience for your market? Is the market oversaturated? Which doesn't mean that you don't enter the market, but it's just something to think about. So if you're someone and you want to curate events, that's amazing. How saturated is that market right now? And what are you willing to do to make yourself stand apart from them? So how can you differentiate? Why would they have come to you for that experience than someone else? So what to do when you have an idea? Talk to people. Don't hold it to the chest, okay?
We want to do that. So bad.
It's so easy to be like, you don't want to tell people because you don't want them to steal your idea or, you know, however, but you don't want to do that. So make sure that you talk to people so that you can get their feedback, even if they do steal your idea. If it's something that they weren't passionate about, they're not going to stick with it, and they're not you. So it really doesn't matter. Make sure, unless there's like IP things that,
sure,
yes, yeah. And we'll talk about that soon, but make sure there is a need. Figure out who your customers are potentially, or who they will be potentially, and then ask yourself, is the idea flexible enough to be sustainable? And so as you grow and you hit a plateau, can your business evolve so that it doesn't die off as things change and as new problems or problems become solved easier? So good business idea characteristics, these are the things that should be incorporated into the idea that you have. So make sure that they include at least 2 of these. Solves a real market problem. So if you're solving a problem, it's like really hard for you to be out of business. If you are providing a need, it's really hard for you to go out of business. Save your audience and money, time, or convenience. And so people buy based off of or purchase something. You know, we pay an extra fee on DoorDash literally because of convenience. You know,
convenience is huge.
Convenience is huge. We could do our own hair, but we pay someone to do it because the time, you know, or the skill set. And so those are some things. Fits into current lifestyle of audience or dramatically improves lifestyle. And so just making sure that if you have an idea, you don't want it to be too off the wall where people have to go out of their way to adapt to your service or product. But if it is an idea that of that nature, then it needs to be something that dramatically improves lifestyle. So think about, like, I know this is like real wild to think about, but think about before internet existed. Like in the whole process of trying to get everyone to adapt to this thing called internet. That's what I mean when it's like that was completely inconvenient and that was not a part of people's lifestyle, but it dramatically improved people's lifestyle. So they were willing to take that chance to get adapted to it. And is your product making life more pleasurable or saving them from pain? And so I like this idea of aspirin versus vitamins. You know, what product are you? Are you the vitamin where it's like you don't necessarily need it?
Preventative care.
It's preventative. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say a luxury care, but but it's something that it adds to your life, but you're not relieving any type of pain. Versus if you have a headache, you know, the first thing you're trying to do is like solve that problem. So are you adding to the luxury of life? This could be your spas. Are you that type of product that's adding to the luxury of life, or are you taking away a pain? And identifying that will help to understand your customer base and how they're willing to move or adapt to your product or service. So this first phase, the first thing that you absolutely need to do is market research. So you have your idea and you've asked yourself, you're like, okay, cool. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm a business owner. All right, cool. I think that my business idea is good. I've talked to a few friends and family. They said that, you know, this type of thing. You've identified, okay, well, I'm solving a problem here, so I think I'll be good. So then you need to identify who's your target audience. You know, how can you conduct market research? I highly recommend to not move forward with business until you've done some type of market research. Okay. A lot of times we can go based off of the assumption of our own thought process and our own experiences. And that is not a way to run business, because you will be very, very surprised that there's other people who have different perspectives.
Yeah, this is actually a really key component that's going to be part of any type of incubator or accelerator you go through. That business I was referencing earlier, we went through this process and we actually changed like completely different product. It was the same technology, but it was a completely different product that we were providing and 2 completely different target audiences, all because we asked people what they want and we just listened to what they had to say. And that ended up being the thing that was needed. That was what was wanted. And then we were able to differentiate ourselves from competition just enough to be something that nobody else had. Mm-hmm. People could get parts of what we built, but they couldn't get this complete set. So even if you feel like there's already something out there that's doing what you want, ask yourself why you feel like it needs to be something different. And then you want to add those components, right, to your product to make it different. Because there's going to be just as many people out there that want that same type of specific thing you want, probably to keep your business going. But the only way to know is that market research.
Yeah. So you can literally just ask people like, what would you want instead? You know, instead of drinking Coke or Pepsi, what are some things that you enjoy about it? What are some varieties that you would like to see? So All right. So the next thing, to design your business model. So now you've identified you're a business owner. You have did your market research. And so after your market research, you want to design your business model. So real quick, so design your business model. So now that we've gone through that market research, the next thing is to do your business model, which is different than your business plan. It helps lay down the foundation for your business plan, but it's a lot easier. So you get to kind of like go through it with a little bit of a breeze. I kind of find it fun. So value proposition, what is it that you are going to be offering to your customers? What value can you give to them? Who's your target customer? So identifying that. How do you want your customer relationships to be? You know, how do you want that experience to be with your audience? What channels are you going to deliver your product or your service? And so that can look like, Jamie, again, you're doing a credit repair. Are you using an app or a software that's already built? You know, or are you having them come to your office and then you sit down and you go over everything? So think about how you want to deliver your product or service. Your revenue streams. What are different revenue streams that you can have? Are you one of the best things and most secure things is having a monthly recurring revenue where you know how much you're going to be making every month. But then you also have other revenue streams like, you know, contracting. And we'll go into that a little bit more when we talk about like strategy. What makes you different? So, and then also your assets. What are assets that you possess that can bring value to your customers? And so like we have certain knowledge in different areas that is a part of our whole business model that we're able to offer that to our customers. Key partners, identifying, okay, once you get your business started, who are some individuals, some organizations and businesses that will be able to benefit you and benefit and you can benefit them. So identifying who your key partners are, and then a cost structure, which we'll kind of talk about a cost structure here shortly.
Okay, so designing pricing strategy. Oh my goodness. I could probably write a book on how much of a pain it was for us to figure out our pricing. There's so many things to consider. It's such a nuanced thing. And you're sometimes operating in realms that you don't even know the answer, you know, especially if you're building something that is not popular, not a lot of different companies and folks are doing. So what are you going to charge? What does it cost to cover your overhead? Overhead is not just, you know, the rent, the lights, the, you know, utilities. Overhead is also software that you may need to do this. Maybe it's a Hootsuite subscription so that you can blast out to social media. Maybe it's contracting or getting somebody on Fiverr. There's all these other things that come into play that you might do on the normal, but not even consider that as being overhead. Mm-hmm. So once you have a good understanding of that, a better idea, now you can try to figure out what your price needs to be. You know, earlier you gave the analogy of, I think it was the hairstylist. And so there's a big difference between being that hairstylist working for someone else. Your hours are completely different than they're going to be when you're your own boss, because now you have to fit time in to do the business side of hairstyling. So all of those things build up, and that's how you have to put all that together to figure out what that cost structure is. And then also you need to understand what type of business should you have? Should it be sole proprietorship, LLC, nonprofit? What do all of these things mean? What are the benefits? At a high level, you know, there's very significant tax differences depending on how you form your corporation. There's also a difference between who's liable. Is it your personal money that's going to get attacked if you get sued? Or is it the business's money keeping you and your family savings safe? So all of those things need to be considered when we're looking at these two strategies.
And we will have some workshops next month that goes over more like the legal side and the pricing strategy. One thing I do want to point out with the pricing strategy is I'm believing that a lot of the people who spoke about what their business is, you have some type of service component to it. And so one thing to be mindful of that I see a lot with people that we deal with is that they'll price based off of like a feeling or how much they want to make. an hour. And so say you are a hairstylist and you're like, I want to make, I don't know, $50 an hour. I want to make $50 an hour. Okay, that's cool. But make sure that you're also incorporating taxes. Then you got to put in, any type of overhead. So do you have a loft or a building, a space, and the cost for that? And so just not like being like, okay, because I do hair, I'm just going to charge, it's going to take me only like 45 minutes to do that. I'll just do like $65.
Right. Yeah.
You really want to think about your products. Like you got to pay for your products. So there is a cost strategy that we usually go into in the actual workshop, like our sales workshop, that we'll learn, and we'll give you guys that information when it is to get more in depth about that. But yeah.
Yeah, you might be able to out hustle in a lot of areas, but you are never getting around tax. It's always going to come back and get you. So,
all right, so this is perfect. We're going to take, because I know that Zoom can be like really, so take 5 minutes, get up, stretch. If you all have any questions about the phase 1, then we could go over that. I think phase 2, honestly, is really the most important phase. So we'll really kind of get down to some nitty gritty. Can you all hear us? Okay, perfect. Okay. So your question, what resources are there for market research? Like, should we expect that to cost or be able to do that with a low cost or free services? It really depends on your business. Most of the time, I know there's, this one's kind of hard. It's not hard, but it really just depends on your business. So for example, you can put together your own focus groups and you don't have to pay. Most of the time you can invite people to do a focus group. You can do surveys. Those are free surveys. And so it just depends on the complexity of the information that you need to get. Once you start getting into, more complex problems, then that will require like a lot of research. Like maybe you're in women's health, then you need to really run like a 6-month research type situation. I'm really trying to think of off the cuff what type of, what will, then, that might cost. I can see something like that costing. And so then you might want to look into grants early on that a research grant.
Yeah.
But most of the time, especially, in the ideation phase, you can conduct market research and it won't necessarily cost. And then as far as actual resources, I'm not too familiar with any resources that are there as far as the market research besides grants, or if you do partnerships with larger organizations that want to push you or promote you to solve that issue. But other than that,
Well, yeah, my experience, it is tricky. It's difficult to know which to do. When we were doing market research in a previous business, we were actually able to hire someone on Fiverr to call people and ask people things and just do things. So it depends on the vertical. Like Lo said, it really depends on what you're doing. If it's something that's common and there's professionals out there that may understand it, may be able to go to do that legwork for you, then that could be a cost, right? A lower cost, just getting them to do the research. But also, we had to spend a lot of time just putting ourselves out there, doing Facebook ads and whatever, just to get a survey filled out, or leveraging your friends and family network. So there's that. And then in medical, there's a lot of papers, and you can read the papers or you can have somebody else read the papers. And again, anything that you're having somebody else do, you're going to have probably a financial cost or some type of barter. And if you do it yourself, now you have a time cost. So I think ultimately there's always a cost. Just depends on how that cost materializes and how much research you need to do and how big the research group needs to be. Oh, we can hear
thanks.
you.
Yeah, you can hear me now. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really research minded. And so I was kind of curious for all of us on here, because we all have different ideas and different needs. But, at what point is it like, all right, we can kind of conduct market research based on the people we know. But then if we want to get funding and we want to show that we've done market research, we probably need a pool from a wider pool of people and communities. So I guess there's probably phases of it. We start with our little small group and then we can kind of grow as we need to. But yeah, I wasn't sure if there were any resources out there that helped with that part of it. Like maybe, what is that called? The Big Gift, or what is not the Big Gift? That's
Columbus Foundation and
no, that's Columbus. The Give Back Hack, that one.
Give back.
Like maybe they help with that part of the process. I wasn't sure.
Well, listen, I think for a lot of the things that you are looking to do, I think larger entities that focus on doing research like Kauffman Foundation, Next Street, they're going out here doing all this work, either philanthropically or doing it for other organizations that are also wanting that information. And a lot of times you can just, subscribe to whatever platform and get access to that. In the area of Kauffman, it's free. It's all free stuff. And then also, LinkedIn, right? Finding people that are working in that field already and just asking them, because chances are they had to do that research or find that information at some point as well.
Yep. And I think I Give Back Hack, I mean, they're really similar models to what it is that we do. So in the accelerator, you will get like a mentor that can help you with that market research aspect of it, but it's really kind of like a case by case. So there isn't like an entity that would be like, hey, you want to do market research, or that I know of. So I'm just going to put that out there, that I know of, that like, hey, you want to do market research, come here. It's more so like, okay, getting a mentor, doing some consulting of like, hey, this is the idea that I have. This is who I know my audience is. And then you have a consultant tell you, okay, like, this is what your market research should look like, and maybe even help connect you with some other organizations that can facilitate that. So. Okay, so now we're moving on to phase 2.
Oh, let me find my button here. Hold on. All right.
So this is the foundation phase. Again, I have said that I think that this phase is one of the most important phases of your business. And so that you're in this if you still haven't launched, or if you're like in the very, very early stages of launch. If you feel like launch is right around the corner for you, if you're ready to get branding done for your business. So a lot of times people are like, okay, once they feel that way, then you kind of know that you're in this phase. And if you understand your market, but you're not sure, how to move forward or what to do now. And so in this phase, the most crucial part, again, I say it's the most crucial part of your business. It can honestly be one of the longest phases outside of the growth phase for your business. It's often supported by bootstrapping. And so I know a lot of times people get into they're out of the ideation phase and they get into this foundation phase where they're building their foundation. They're like, okay, I need money. And I'm not saying that it's impossible to get money, but you probably won't be set up for like receiving funding until you're in the growth phase.
Yeah, and bootstrapping, just for those that may not be aware, is when you spend your own money to grow your business.
Yeah,
which probably, most of us are doing that. That's just a fancy name.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you, So this really determines your success. It's also known as the seed stage, and then organizations that would be great for you during this stage outside of ours. So we still deal with businesses who are in this foundation stage, but SBDC, so that's like the Small Business Development Center at Columbus State, Columbus Urban League, because they do have they have a program where they build your business plan. And so they would be a good resource as well. So they're Minority Business Center. So what to do now? You have done all the ideation things. You've determined who your market, you've done your market research. What do you do now? And so next, this is where the fun comes into. You can do your branding. So now, and I'm like really excited because I'm like, a lot of people really just skip to this part because I think it's the fun part. But you really get to determine what your voice is and how to connect with your target audience. So after you do that, you want to determine how do you reach your market. That's why this point is really important.
Yeah, and then financial management, right? Because the money is behind all of it. We talked about it earlier, what are these other things that are part of your startup? What are these costs that you're going to have to deal with? Not only that, what's it costing you to continue business every day, every week, every month? What does that look like, and how does that project out over time? Seasonally, does heat go up, or do you need more air conditioning, whatever the case may be? The cost of the product or service that you have, what is that actual price to build it, for you to build it internally? And then what do you think you can sell it for, right? And then you come into your net profit. Okay, this is what all of the cost to get this thing to a person was. This is how much I'm selling it to this person. And then that difference is obviously where we want to have a high, nice, fat number. And so then your sales projections, cost projections, all kind of flow into that, accumulates there. And yeah.
Perfect. And then lastly, so I'm not a huge business plan person, but if you are someone who you're looking to eventually get funding, this is definitely inevitable. You're going to have to develop some type of business plan. And so these are the things that you want to think about in your business plan. You want to have your cover page, executive summary. So this is just a full description of your business. I know that sounds like, executive summary, but so, your company, require facilities or require employees. That's when they talk about like the company, what is required for you to be able to run your business, your marketing plan, your product and service plan, your market penetration, sales and pricing plan. How do you plan to tap into this market? How do you plan to sell to this market? Your management and organizational plan, operating and control systems plan. I know it's like so many different plans. Financial plan and growth plan. And then lastly, why should someone invest? So those are all of the different things that you all want to include into your business plan. And I'm not going to say it should be fun, but if you change your mindset about if this is helping you map out your business and not like, this is a essay that I have to write about my business, it will make the process a lot easier.
Yeah, you said it earlier, it's a long game. This isn't something you're just going to sit down on Friday and think you're just going to knock out, right? This is going to take time, a lot of time. But, the great news is this portion, even though we all hate it, there's a lot of resources, a lot of help out there. There's a lot of online platforms. There's the Small Business Development Center, like you mentioned. So there is help out there for this. So it's not something you have to do alone.
Oh, and also a cheat code. One thing that you can do is for each of these things, I usually go in and bullet point. So I just bullet point, okay, this is my marketing plan, this is how. And then you can go take it to an organization like Columbus Urban League, and then you can have them develop out your full business plan so that, just making it easy, or find somebody on Fiverr to do it.
Cheat codes.
Cheat codes.
Love it. All right, this is a part that I really enjoy. Building a strong team. Even if you're a solopreneur, there's still a team involved somehow, some way. Maybe you're contracting, maybe you're on Fiverr, maybe you actually have business partners. Hey, partner. You have to really consider, though, how that makeup is going to look. What roles do you need to fill? Where do you have weaknesses? Where do you need strengths? Where have you decided that I'm not even going to mess with that? Taxes, legal, common areas that you may not want to mess with if that's not your business. So you really need to think about how you're going to fill those roles and then the associated costs with that as well. But personalities are super important. I don't know what you guys' tax experience is with professionals, but there's the tax people that'll do exactly what needs to be done. And then there's the tax people that'll say, hey, I recommend you do a different set of hours so that you don't cross a threshold or this or that are being proactive and looking out for you. Then you need to think about, how is the team going to be compensated? If we're talking bootstrap, maybe you don't have money to pay all these folks, or even the contractors or the Fiverr folks. So now you might need to depend on friends in your community that you've worked with, friends in your circle. Maybe somebody that's good at legal, and you say, hey, you know what? If you can take care of this part of my business for me as we grow, I'll give you a little bit of equity. I'll give you a little bit of everything that we make. Or you can go out and find the funding through grants And we talked about that a little bit. And then advisors as well. You need some advisors to kind of help you out. And again, those areas where you may not be super strong. So if you're building, I don't know, baking cookies and you've never done it at scale, maybe it's a good idea to go talk to somebody that has done it at scale that can help you with cheat codes and figure out how to do that in the best way. And again, saving you from having to take those extra steps and mistakes and missteps that they took.
And some people honestly will be an advisor on, like, so you can go to them like, hey, you know, I really need help with my business. They would be an advisor if they see potential in your business. Some of them will do it at no cost. And so they'll just come on as a mentor because they see that the potential growth and what your business can do.
Sometimes you just have really good friends that are like, I've got you. All right, so then funding sources. We talked about what bootstrapping is. So that's, again, paying for it out of your pocket. Loans. Oh, I'm definitely afraid of debt. I don't want to be in debt. But sometimes you need that capital to launch your business. So you have to look at it differently, right? A loan for something you may not necessarily need, like maybe a super large TV or that next model of the car, may not be good debt. But a loan for something that you're using to build out a business that's going to make you a return on that loan, that's good. So we've got to get that mindset that it's okay to have good debt, right? Venture capital, there's folks out here that are looking to fund what it is you're doing. The tricky part is, how do you find them? How do you find those folks? And then we've got crowdfunding, and we've got a local hero, Dawn Dixon is her name, right? That PopCon, I think, is the organization, and she's just been a beast in the whole crowdfunding. And we're hoping to have some engagement with her through our accelerator as well. So that should be interesting. Really, really good information there. But crowdfunding, really getting the community to invest, people that may want your product, your service, getting them to invest in helping you build it and bringing it to them. That's a really, really popular way these days. Brokers to raise money for you, right? You want to talk on that one?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact term. I think they're PMMs. Well, the agreement, but you can get people who will, you can contract, and basically you'll go into a contract with them. They'll go out and get money for you, but they also will take a huge percentage. So it sounds great, but they also take a percentage of the funding that you do acquire. So that's just something to think about.
And it may be worth it, right? Because the game here, the balance that you're trying to make is, can this person help you get so much more money than you would have otherwise that it makes it worth paying them to get you that money?
Yep.
And then angel or private investors, those may be self-explanatory. The angel investors are the folks that really believe they have the same passion, but they don't want to put in that work for whatever reason. They want to fund you for doing that work. And private investors fall into that same line sometimes as well.
Yeah, and usually angel investors are willing to work with you on what it looks like. So they might ask you to guarantee a certain amount of equity up front, and then you can pay off that equity as you go, so that they are no longer a business owner, or they don't have those shares into your company. So that's something to think about if you're looking at building like or offering some type of equity share with your business model.
Phase 3.
So does anyone have any questions really quick about phase 2, the foundation phase? Oh, we can keep the slide up.
All right.
And if you do have questions at some point, just drop them in the chat. All right, so you've gone through all of that, and you are now at phase 3, which is your launch phase. And so this is like, when you're in this phase, and all of the rest of the phases kind of go a little bit quicker. You don't have as many components to them once you get out of launch phase. So that's something to think about. But you're in launch phase if you're planning for launch, or if you've just launched your business, if you've identified what your MVP is and you're ready to move forward, if you're ready to prove concept. And so that is really kind of like testing the waters. And when you are in business, the launch phase doesn't mean that that's always how you'll conduct business. And so this is your the stage that they usually call like your proof of concept. because you really test the waters. You'll take your minimum viable products, or basically, what is that one thing that makes you special that you're going to be selling? And so say you have a restaurant, maybe you have a certain dinner. Like, oh, what's that restaurant out in Gahanna? I know some of y'all know what I'm talking about. They have these gold chicken wings.
What?
They got gold chicken wings. You know, oh, we got to go there one day. Okay. So they have gold chicken wings. And so that was their product that really like put them on the map. They Stadium, thank you. So they tested that theory of, okay, cool. They were able to get feedback about the whole experience. And then I'm pretty sure that they did make adjustments to their menu once they were like, okay, now we're out of this launch phase, we're going into growth. Here are some of the things that people said they like. Here are some of the things that we need to change. So things to know about this stage. There is much testing that needs to be done. So this is one of those stages where you have to be flexible and you have to listen to your market, because they're going to tell you immediately what they like and what they don't like about what it is that you're offering. You will most likely operate at a loss in this time. So I hate to say it, and I know that social media sometimes makes it feel a little bit different, that okay, you finally jumped off the handle, the handle, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. And then all of a sudden you think that you're about to be having the sales roll in, and it's not like that. It's usually the complete opposite. So definitely prepare to operate at a loss. That doesn't mean that you don't make any money. What it means is that your startup costs, the amount that it took you to start up the business, and your profit don't necessarily put you in the positive. Yeah. And so you're probably still operating negative because it took you a $25,000 investment to start your whole business base. And then you're making money now, but you've only made about 10,000. So you're still operating at a loss. That's something that's normal. Build a strong foundation personally, mentally, and financially. And I had this conversation with someone earlier about the mental aspect of it and the financial aspect of it. I know I'm going to be real candid with you guys. I know it's really, really, really hard, especially sometimes in, the Black or Latinx community and a minority community, because also women as well, because we have the disparities when it comes to pay. And so I think it can be hard sometimes to have the financial stability to be able to run your business, to start it, because it's like, well, do I quit my job? We have someone who just, lost their job. And so in this phase, I often try to strategize with, the person of like, what is something that you can do to make sure that you're stable, to be stable, so that you have the clarity to build your business and you're not banking, or you're like super desperate for your business to work. You're allowing your business to be able to go through the natural stages that it needs to in order to be successful. And you'll do more harm to your business if you're using it as something that needs to bring in revenue immediately before it's actually ready to. And the organizations that are great during this phase, Sea Change, SBDC again, and then other entrepreneur centers, like I think they have a New Albany Entrepreneur Center. They have a Dublin one. So different entrepreneur centers are really great when you're in this phase.
The U.
Yeah.
I love this stage because everything you've done in the previous phases there's a lot of, well, not everything, but there's a lot of one-offs, right? Like forming the business and all these different things, getting your DUNS number, all these different things you want to do. A lot of times, that's where a lot of the weight comes from in the front end, because you've never done it before. You're trying to figure out who you can trust to do that for you, or learn how to do it yourself. And it's just like, and you're not even working on what it is you love to do yet, right? You're just doing all this ancillary stuff. But then you get here and it's like, all right, I think we got it. We've done our research. We've got all these, we've got ourselves in the best position to do this we can be in. Now let's put it out there to the world and see what happens. And that's where that testing and all these other components come in. And we talked about the funding. When we talk about bootstrapping or getting funding, All of that work you did, figuring out how much you need, is so that you can get that amount as you're getting into this launch stage. So you're not sitting there worried, like, I really got to make a sale. And you're like badgering people, are like, buy this, instead of letting them enjoy the experience, the purchasing experience like you want them to. So yeah, really interesting stage here.
Yeah, I love this stage.
Oh, checklist. I'm a checklist guy. I love checklists. So I'm not going to read it all to you because, they're there, and I'm one of those people that don't like reading the PowerPoint, but just try to hit some of the key points, right? We just talked about budget. Don't have to go over that one again. The market, right? Mm-hmm. Definitely super important. You want to make sure you actually have one. That would be great. And then what is that market? How do you know where you're going to put your advertising dollars and put your effort? Online presence. That was kind of my specialty as a side hustle. Getting yourself out there, getting your name out there. It starts off with the simplest thing, like, how do you want to be identified, right? What's your voice and all that stuff that we'll go into in the accelerator, that whole marketing piece. And then planning out the customer experience. Another fun part, right? What does it look like once the customer finds out about you or your service or your product? What's the next step that they experience? Are they coming through on Instagram and through that user experience? Are they coming through from a website? Do they have to call you, right? Is there automate, like all those different things come into play? Like, how is your customer experiencing working with you and getting your service? Is it as simple as one click, they're done? Those types of things. Operational systems workflow is, how do you run your daily business? Every Tuesday, do I need to do invoicing? Every Wednesday, do I need to take a look at my P&L? Like, there's all these different things that you have to do on a consistent basis. You don't want to lose track of, because that's, you get behind, especially taxes. Oh my gosh, taxes. Depending on your business type, you might have to pay quarterly taxes instead of every year. So you need a process for that. You need an operational workflow to make sure you're capturing all of those things and nothing gets lost.
As you guys can see, taxes really stress.
It really stressed me out. I don't like playing with money. I do not like playing with money. It's like, and then how do you measure your success? So what does success look like? Is it 80% growth in the first year? Is it X amount of dollars over the X amount of quarters? What does success look like for you? You've got to identify it, because you have to have a marker to hit. Otherwise, you're just kind of going along and you're not really sure what your direction is. And
be realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, be realistic about what success looks for you. Because being like, hey, I want to make 7, sometimes it might happen, but saying I want to make 7 figures in the first year might not be the most realistic thing. You could be like, hey, I want to make sure that every month I'm having 10 repeating clients.
Yeah. Little stuff like that. And, personally, the teams I've been on, we try to go a little bit outside of reach, right? We don't make it too easy either. Want to be realistic, but not too easy. We've got to have something to push ourselves. So you definitely want to be mindful with that. Which kind of leads to culture, right? That's a good segue into culture, because if you're doing it by yourself or you're doing it with a team, you still have to kind of understand the environment that you're wanting to present. What kind of culture do you want to have for your internal team? And then what do you want people to see you as? How do you want to be perceived by your potential customers? We talk about leadership types. You might want to be a very strict, bossy manager type leader. I said it with a little bit of disdain, but hey, that's what works for some people, right? And be true to yourself. If you are that type of person, own it. Just make sure you get your team to balance that out, right? Balance out whatever you need. Or if you just want to be carefree and give everything away and love, peace, and great. Have that type of leadership style where you're always in front and you're doing all the tactical work and showing other people. That's cool, but you've got to make sure you have a counterbalance to that. So that type of leader and culture and team dynamic is super important. And then determine what it is you want to do, your MVP, your minimum viable product. We've mentioned a couple of times. What is the least that you can do to have a working look at what your product is? And I'll use an app, for example. Maybe you want to build this big, fancy game, and you want to have all these different leaderboards and all these different levels and maps and all this other stuff. But your MVP needs to be, hey, here is one level. Here's the gameplay. Give somebody an idea of what that interaction is going to be with that game before you build it out. Because what you're going to find out in your MVP is You thought they wanted a cliff and the ball to do this or that. And they didn't want that at all. They wanted a river and they wanted a boat on it. You know, I'm just throwing out random stuff.
Like what?
But the point is, it could be absolutely different than what you thought it was going to be. But the only way to know that is to just start off with something minimum so that they can get the idea. You don't want to put a lot of effort into building out something completely and then nobody really wants that thing and you've kind of missed the mark.
Yeah. Okay. So measure and adjust. So test and test again. So it's really just saying exactly what Ski just said about MVP. In this phase, the biggest thing for launch is that you're just testing, like you're throwing stuff against the wall and you're testing it. And so say you want to curate, I know someone here wants to curate experiences. That can be a lot of different ways. It can be you can ask the person and they come to you and you consult and you customize or curate an experience for them. Or it could be something of you already curate an experience and then you create this environment where people can come to your experience. And so just kind of like testing which one works. I mean, I've actually seen both models of work and seeing, you know, like how does that work for you? So just throwing stuff against the wall, we actually have done that multiple times in this business. So when we started off, we had a core of like what it was that we were going to do. We were going to do membership based. We're going to have the space be a co-working space, all of these things. So we threw it against the wall. We're like, okay, all right, so wait, hold on. It's a lot of co-working spaces. We're kind of limited on parking. People are not really enjoying this experience the way we thought they would.
And oh, by the way, COVID.
Oh yeah, by the way, COVID. So maybe we need to take that back and adjust it. Okay, cool. And now we throw this against the wall and see if that works. So those are some things. Just make sure that you're staying flexible, you're measuring, and then you're adjusting.
Yeah, a trigger word there, a key word that you hear a lot is pivot.
Yep.
Right. And a pivot just simply means you've been focused on doing this one thing. And now you've realized, because you start off with an MVP and you're getting feedback from folks, now you realize we need to adjust it a little bit. So it's kind of like that pivot foot in basketball, right? Just kind of like pivoting around and we're going to focus this direction now.
Why am I really imagining you like?
That's right. You like posting up. Okay. So next we're going to talk about growth.
Okay.
So we've gotten away from this MVP and we've kind of figured out the secret sauce.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing. We know what we're going for here.
So growth is how to determine that you're in growth. So you have sales coming in, which, by the way, is one of the most amazing feelings when you start to get people to buy into your idea. I feel like even to this day, I feel like it still like blows my mind. Like, whoa. So that's like an amazing feeling. So once you start to get that feeling, you got people coming onto your team, kind of buying into this vision. You're starting to have conversations about like, okay, how do we bring in more money? Or, and you really begin to have a solid business model. I won't even say begin. You have a solid business model. That's how you know that you're in the growth phase. And so things to know about the growth phase. Now, this is when you start making money. This is when you start to see profit and you're no longer operating in the red. And so it's very easy when you start to see profit to be like, bling, bling, let's go spend some money. And so being able to understand what your bottom line is and keeping that in mind, because that looks different. We have some workshops that will go over that, like our sales ones. It helps you with growing something that is actually sustainable. Partnerships and collaborations in this phase are so crucial because that will help you expand far beyond, your reach. I recommend mentorship because in this phase, like I said, the last 3 phases that we'll go over, this phase and the next 2, those phases, they look different for everyone. And so there's not really like a particular program that is going to make you grow. Even when you go through an accelerator and you're entering into, and they're looking for businesses that are in growth, they usually have you partner with a mentor because it looks so different for every business. So they will really help to shape your experience. And then this is a good question to ask yourself. Do you want to scale? Because that will determine if you even go to the next stages and then what the final stage looks like for your business. There are some people who are like, I just want to have this corner store and that is it. I don't want to franchise this. I just want to be able to offer this and that is it. So it's kind of like, is that something that you want to do? If you don't want to scale, then all you need to really be thinking about over the years is, how can I continue to be flexible for my audience? How can I continue to be flexible for my target market so that I don't start to see a decline? Because there's like business cycles. And then once you get into the growth phase, then you start to go back here. So organizations that would be great to partner with during this time, ECDI. And so Rev One, they're a great organization. OSU has a business center, a minority business center, social ventures, and then VC orgs as well. So they can really help you if you decide that you want to go into that scale phase.
So growth, I'm thinking more money, more taxes.
Oh God.
Right? But it's true. Now you've really scaled up and now you've got to consider that. And so that's where you're talking about that bottom line, right? Keeping that bottom line in mind and paying attention to what that projected growth looks like versus what your actual growth looks like and making sure you're making the right moves with the money on that. And for those that may not know, ECDI is right down the street from us, actually. It's the Economic and Community Development Institute. And you may be familiar with them with the Food Fort. They really do a lot of work funding traditionally high-risk businesses like restaurants, food trucks, that kind of thing. But they're an incredible resource. They've got a lot going on there. And Rev One has traditionally been more high-end tech and biomed focused. A lot of work with OSU and research and things like that, but they have an in-house residency program that a lot of people can grow into. They do the customer learning lab out there. It's just another really good resource, as well as the others that Della mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and one thing too, I forgot to mention this as well. One thing about the launch and the growth phase, not to scare anyone, but these phases are usually when most businesses fail. And it's not because they didn't have a good idea. A lot of times it's because their idea was too great. And you reach a space where your customer base, your demands, you're bringing in way more than you can actually handle. Because you haven't, you're just now turning the corner of not being in red. And so you're either breaking even or you're making a little bit of profit. You haven't gotten enough money to bring on people, full time. But then you also have a demand for what it is that you're offering. And so you want to be very mindful when you're in this phase of how you handle that and realizing the bottom line. So once you enter into the growth phase, this is where a lot of the businesses, they don't make it.
I think a great example of that we can all see in our lifetime. Well, maybe not everyone's lifetime. Let me pause before I say
I'm nervous about you.
But software. You used to be able to go out and buy Windows, a copy of Windows for your computer, and that was just a one and done, right? Or you can go buy Word, or you can buy a game. And nowadays, everybody's gone to this monthly recurring model, right? Because they figured out I'm doing all this work up front. I've got to sell it at this crazy high price, and I'm really missing out here, opposed to I'm still got to make updates even to the one that I sold and packaged. Mm-hmm. So I've still got to pay people. I've still got to do all this stuff. And if you try to do a one and done in software now, you're going to fail. That's the one thing you're going to build, and you're going to have to start off somewhere else. But nowadays, people understand the value of a lower price, and now I'm going to get payments every month over time. And that was necessary to sustain the business because there was just too much competition.
I think if this is may not be this might be inappropriate, but I think about OnlyFans.
Well, OnlyFans isn't just for nude things, right? It's also.
But I wouldn't say they failed, but it was a beast. Like it had a mind of its own, and that's a real good example of how the market will tell you how they want to use your products. It don't matter if it's aligned with what it is that you want to do or not.
Yeah.
Alicia, you got a question?
Yeah. So if an idea is too great and you can't keep up with the demand, are a lot of the businesses that fail, are they maybe afraid to take out a second loan? Do they not think about it? Are they not able to? Does that make sense?
So that's actually what we're, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure.
Oh. So this actually, I just wanted to have this up. But this actually is where you really start to think about funding. So remember when we talked about, I had mentioned that a lot of times people want to get the funding in the beginning, and you're probably not going to be funded unless you get like a personal loan or something like that. And then you go through, this is where you have to time up getting the funding at the right point. You're in
Did
that?
I go to the wrong one?
Yeah, you did.
Which one do you need me on?
Sorry. Oops. This one. Sorry.
All right.
So I wouldn't say people are afraid. A lot of times people haven't proven concept enough to be able to qualify for certain things. You might not be in business long enough to qualify for certain things. So there's a lot of different things. We kind of had this experience where we were in this weird phase. Every business goes through it. You're in this weird phase of, okay, we are growing, but then there's a lag because you're growing and you need exponentially more people to be a part of your team, but you're not growing fast enough to be able to pay these people what they're worth to be on your team. And so that's when you really should look into those funding options in this stage. Not really before, but really in this stage, you're looking at loans, you're looking at crowdfunding, you're looking at investors, grants, things like that.
Yeah, thanks. I think that answers it. Sometimes we look for funding too early and then we don't get it at the right time.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And I would say just try to get funding. If it's early, they'll tell you it's early, but you don't want to do it too late. Okay. So then from your, you got it over the thing. I can't see. All right. So in this phase, things to have in place. So you want to make sure that, you have your business model together and you're solid. And you want to make sure that by now your business plan is solid so that you'll be able to move forward with getting funding. This is, again, that's why I said overcoming the higher probability of failing. Having in mind a great team that you want to put together when you do have, when you do start to have funding in. And then lastly, make sure that you know exactly what it is that you want to do when the funding comes in, because that process can be really, really quick. And you want to make sure that you are ready when it's time for your business to go. All right, so next phase. So we have about 2 more phases. You have phase 5. So this is your scaling phase.
Yes. How do you know when you're in scale? That's the question. It's the crazy question. Well, you've been consistent, right? You've had a lot of consistency, like we were talking about. Your profits are coming in. You're feeling comfortable about starting some new things, maybe. You're going to take some risks. Maybe you were working out of home and now you want to get a brick and mortar and start to pay on that lease. That's an example of a risk, because now you're like, oh, this is a whole new version, something we haven't done before. And it comes with its own fees and costs. And so you kind of have to go back, reevaluate those projections and look at that overhead. Now you've got a team of people that are contributing to the success of the business. So whether that's actual teammates you have that are part of your business, or maybe you've locked down your lawyer and your finance person, a couple people on Fiverr that do some stuff for you, that's still your team, right? But everybody's like cooking with gas. You understand each other's personalities and the objectives and the goals.
You said personalities, real weird.
Yeah, personalities.
I thought that was a dig.
Oh, no. But, personalities. And so now you're looking for ways to expand, right? So we've hit our marks, we've hit our goals that we talked about. Maybe we exceeded them or we were a little below, but now we want to go further and we're ready to hit that next level. So the things that we need to think about in this phase are the founders might have to take a back seat, right? Maybe the founders can't do that tactical level of work that they used to do, the actual flipping of the proverbial burger, right? Now they need to step back and have the rest of the team focus on those things while they focus on the strategic vision, thinking about where are we going to take the business to the next level, right? And sometimes that you just can't do both at the same time. You can't do day-to-day operations and work on that at the same time. Which is why it's important to have a competent team. You need to have people that understand the flow, the vision, the steps, that operational workflow that we talked about. You've got to have people that understand that and that you can trust that they're going to be able to pull that off without you being there. The flexibility in your business model improves or helps prevent the business from declining. So being aware of what's going on in the market, in the environment, case in point, COVID, right? We were trying to
taxis.
Taxis. You're trying to have a shared workspace, and now there's nobody that can enter buildings. Okay, so now you've got to make that pivot, and you've got to be flexible and find some other way to still keep your business going that's different than the pre-prescribed method that you had. And sometimes it's not so massive. Most of the time, it's not such a massive thing. It's just maybe little nuanced things that you need to do different.
Or you could be like I was saying, it's taxi. You could be like the taxis, and then get swept up by Uber.
So you want to make those tweaks that make sure that you stay relevant, right? It could even be the difference in the way that you market, right? But you're always looking at how your customers are engaging and using that information to make those minor adjustments, make decisions on those, and be innovative, right? We could have said, you know what, we can't do the in-space thing, let's just hang it up. Instead, we decided to go virtual. Let's take advantage of our internal skill sets and do what we're doing virtual. Tonight, case in point, right? Like we were planning to do this in person and have it, nice and comfortable and warm and food and all that. And then there's an ice storm that just popped up. So, so you got to be a little bit flexible. And the innovation in this sense is us being able to leverage this technology to reach out to you guys, right? And others that aren't even here today. So when we have these recordings. And again, we're looking at the same types of organizations that we want to engage with. So venture capitalists, people that are going to give money, expecting a return to make that vision become a reality and to continue to grow that reality that you've created. And ECDI, again, with funding, and Rev1 with some capital, but also those networks, those mentors that we talked about before that are going to be ready and helpful when you're ready to get to the next level. So we had mentors before, and those mentors were helping us get to a certain level. Now we're at that level, and we need mentors that are at a much higher level to help us get there, right? So it's ever evolving. And now, let's not forget, very important, now you are a mentor for folks that are where you started, right? And I think it's super important, and we talked about building the network and relationships. You want to continue to feed this funnel. You want to continue to feed into the folks that are trying to get to where you're at. And then that's karma, if you will help you be in front of people that are where you're trying to get.
Yep, definitely agree. All right, so we're here. We have arrived. So Excellent. Phase 6, exit.
Now, you may not be there, right? This may not be something for you. You might, like Lil said earlier, want to just own this business. As you said, the business ends when you end.
I was going to say, it's going to end some way. Yeah. Well, your journey there is going to end some way.
Yeah, so, okay, you're questioning what the next steps are. You want to know, do I want to have this business running on its own and I have to manage it? I have to still be in charge of all of these decisions? Or maybe it's where you want it to be. You've achieved everything you wanted to do with this particular thing. Maybe it's time to sell it to somebody else that wants to continue to drive that ship, that wants to continue to push that passion forward, right? Now you want to maybe start something else. You want to do something new. Again, to reference the history that I had, we had a business that was IT, high scale. We were trying to do quick growth and all of those things. And we got it to a point that somebody else thought it was valuable. And we said, okay, take it. But now we can't do that anymore. We had to pick something else. Mm-hmm. And my partners and I ended up doing different things. And this being the thing that I'm doing now, but it's like the true entrepreneurs probably never stop trying to create ways to fix problems, right? Or provide services for people or fill those needs. And so maybe your exit is because you've accomplished the goal you wanted to accomplish and you're ready to start something else. Or it could be that it's not working out the way you thought. Or what? It's not working out the way you thought it was going to work out, right? Sales are declining, world events happened, and all of a sudden, it's just not as popping as it was when you started or when you were in that growth and scale stage. So maybe it's time to get out of it. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You did what you came to do. You planted the flag. You provided service or products to people. You made some money. And now that season is over, right?
It's like Snapchat.
Yeah.
Well, even though Snapchat is still very much a thing, but when they were in their prime, Facebook offered to buy them. And then now their value has decreased. Mm-hmm. And they said no. So, but I guess they, integrity of them loving their business that much.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, Tesla is run by Elon Musk, and I don't know how many people know that he didn't create it. Like there were two other people that created Tesla. He became a partner and then bought it. That was their exit. They exited Tesla. But they got a lot of money, got a lot of stocks.
I love to say, would you be kicking yourself?
I don't know. That's. But this is the reason why we bring it up. That's the point, right?
But you don't know. They don't know that it would have grown like that, or maybe they weren't going to be able to grow it like that.
Yeah, that is very true.
There's so much nuance, right? We talked about leadership style.
Mm-hmm.
His leadership style, from what I understand in the public sphere, is way different than the two individuals that owned it before. Maybe that was part of the conflict. There's all those things that we have to consider. That's why all of this is so important. It's not always just straight and narrow one person show. You have to consider these other variables that come into play. So things to know about this phase. It looks different to different people, right? We just talked about some of the examples of why you might want to get rid of it, why you might want to stop, or public, IPO, right? Going public, the initial public offering. I remember when Facebook went public, Mark Zuckerberg owned that thing personally. Mm-hmm. And then he said, you know what, I can make more money if I get other people to invest their money into this, then I can scale and grow even further. Mm-hmm. So it may not look like an exit in the sense that we've been talking about, but it was an exit because it's no longer his company. Now it's owned by the public because people are buying stock in it. And that changes the whole dynamic on how he can run the business. Case in point, he's sitting in front of Congress all the time explaining things that the business is doing because it is a public business now. So something serious to consider. And then passing it on. I think for most of the folks that we end up working with, it's really that question of, do I want this to be a lifestyle business? And we're going to focus on survivability and sustainability, right? So when I end, I want my children to be able to carry this on. Or maybe they don't care, they're not interested, or maybe I don't have kids, but I want someone to be able to carry on the business. And then you just let it run its course. You mentioned earlier, sometimes you just make a business that only has a purpose to do a thing, and once it's done the thing, it's over.
Yep.
Like Snapchat.
No, dang, Snapchat is still here.
So to bring it full circle, we talked about ideation in the beginning. This is why thinking about how you want to exit is so important. in the ideation phase when you're just starting, because it's really gonna make you make certain choices depending on how you want to exit. When we started, we were a LLC and we weren't ever thinking about being acquired. And we didn't even know that there was a significance to what type of business formation you had as to how it would go with mergers and acquisitions. So we just know we didn't want to be liable if somebody wanted to sue us. And it was $100 on the internet, boom, done. We had our LLC. But then when it came to that acquisition time, our exit, it was serious. We had to change from an LLC to a C Corp, which cost about $12,000. And so we could have saved that hassle, that stress, that frustration at that point, had we set ourselves up in the beginning to be acquirable, right? And so we would have started off as a C Corp. It would have cost maybe $1,000, and we would have been ready to go at the drop of the hat if somebody wanted to make that acquisition. So you really need to know in the beginning. You have some other thoughts for that circle of life?
No, I think you really pinpointed all the ways you can exit.
Awesome. We've got about 14 minutes left. I think we are ready for some Q&A. Let's do a little Q&A session.
Okay, cool.
I'll stop the share, bring up all these lovely names and faces.
And I'm gonna bring up some of the questions. So if you guys have, he said this is Shark Tank time.
Shark Tank. Yeah.
So what questions do you all have regarding business? I'm gonna pull up some of the ones that were submitted, but let us know. Okay. And you guys can drop them in the chat if you feel uncomfortable with just unmuting. So one of the questions that we got was how to effectively keep your business afloat when you've reached capacity. How to keep your business afloat when you reach capacity. So I think that we kind of talked about that when we were discussing the growth phase. Once you feel like you've reached capacity, you can no longer do a certain service. So I'm going to pick on Jamie again. You've reached the amount of like people that you can help or credit services that you can personally do. Then it's time to look at your business model. And so it could look as simple as changing your business model. For Jamie, it might be a little bit easier. You can look at your business model and be like, hey, I do want to scale a little bit bigger. I want to be able to service 100 people every 6 months. So that's going to require me to bring on 2 to 3 extra people. So then what does that look like? Maybe your business model is you have to change your pricing structure so that you can account for the additional people who are coming in. Or it looks like getting funding. So then now you have a proven business model. You can take that model and then you can go out and seek funding so that you'll be able to bring on more assistance. So a lot of times capacity looks like you need to build a team. Well, at that point, either you're going to, either you're going to fund it yourself. You're going to fund bringing on people yourself, or you're going to take the time to try to get funding. And we do have some workshops here coming up that will go over, different ways to get funding. It's a lot. I wouldn't say it's easy. I'm not going to make it seem easy, but there's a lot of resources out there. I think it's just about getting access to them. I'm pulling survey questions and chat questions.
Well, I'll grab a chat question here. Gabriella asks, how do you know which entity is right for your business, whether it's LLC or C Corp? Yeah, great question. And to be honest, it can actually change over time. So I recommend this hidden gem we have. If you're local to the Columbus area, the Moritz College of Law at OSU actually provides free legal service. Their students that are in school are led by a 2-person team of real lawyers, and they actually provide free services. We'll make sure we send out, I took a note to send out the link for that organization where you can sign up. But if you can't take advantage of that for whatever reason, you really need to talk to somebody that's a professional in that area. SBDC other entities like that will also be really helpful. It's not our personal specialty, but when we need to know stuff like that, we go talk to the guys at the Moritz College of Law. So definitely a good resource there.
Yeah. What makes the idea a success? Okay. So what makes the idea a success? Really, okay, I have a couple of things that I feel like would be really important. Are you, like, I know I said this earlier, but I really wanted to think on people to think on this on a critical level. Are you really fulfilling a need? You know, like, are you really solving a problem or fulfilling a need? And that is, like, that's really the biggest thing. Because I feel like if you're not, then you're living in this space that you have to convince people to buy into what it is that you have. So, like, case in point, someone might start, what's a business that I've heard of? And I don't want to, hopefully if we ever put this out, maybe I should.
I can tell you what happened to us. We were trying to sell to consumers. We were trying to sell an app to consumers that would let them control the internet. It's kind of like, for those that may be familiar with Eero or Google Wi-Fi, or sometimes your internet service provider they give you an app where you can, like, pause devices or set bedtime blockers and that kind of stuff. That's what we built. And we were trying to sell that to average everyday people. And everybody was like, it was too hard to explain it. We couldn't even explain what it was. And it was just not needed by the people, but we knew for sure it was. Well, we ended up figuring out that instead of trying to go to each individual, why don't we go to the people that have a ton of customers? We sell the value to them. They can also now sell that value to the public. And so the biggest thing that we found was there's these small internet service providers that have hundreds or maybe thousands of customers in these remote areas where the AT&Ts and the Comcasts don't want to go. And we did our research and we found out there was exactly 3,862 of these type companies, right, servicing these people. And then we kind of figured out overall how many actual end customers, home users, were being serviced by those 3,000 organizations. And so we had to convert our product to fit their model. And we said, hey, since you can't build this in-house, you can't build this big system that the AT&Ts can build, we'll build it for you. We'll lease it to you for that monthly recurring. Now you can compete with your competitors. You can say, we also have an app that you can control your home internet. And it's better than Comcast's because, or it's better than AT&T's because. And so that was an example of where we were way off in the beginning. And we found that market that actually did have a need.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is make sure that there's just a need present. Make sure that there's either a need or you're solving a problem. And or you're making people feel really, 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 really good. Because if it's not a need, I think about, I have a dog, just real quick. I have a dog. And so my dog having clothes on is not really a need, you know, like it's not solving a problem. It just makes me think that he looks cuter with his sweatshirt. And I just buy him a bunch of clothes. And so that's kind of like an example of, okay, is there a need for it in the market? Yes, there's a need because it makes me feel good. And me and a bunch of other people feel really, really good about our dogs. Go ahead, Tiara.
So I know we talked about market research a little bit, and Ski, what you just said brought this question to my head. So I know we talked about, like, okay, let's find out who our target market is, or our target audience is. Let's interview them. Let's do focus groups, so on and so forth. But as we talk about like the competition that's already out there, or I guess kind of what's already locally out there, is there a good way to figure that out? Like if I'm talking about, doing some event center space, how do I know, besides like Instagram and like what I know personally, what else is already out there to be able to know, like, okay, what I'm doing is going to be a value add to this, or maybe there's already a lot of these out there. Like, is there a good way to do that?
So for what you, well, for what you want to do, what I would do is I would reach out to people who have had events, who have, like, if they've curated these space. I remember Humans of Columbus, they used to curate these really awesome gatherings. I would reach out to them and see, who curated that for you? Why? How was that experience for you? The sucky part about market research is sometimes it's not easy. You're going to have to do thorough research. It may look like you're going to events. It may look like you're asking the people who put on the events, like, hey, who did your event for you? Okay, what did you like about that experience? What would you have changed about that experience? And so those are the kind of the things that I would do, even on a corporate level. If you're going to some of these corporate events, you can talk to people like, hey, what type of experience do you all like? What makes sense? And what about the process did you like and didn't like? So would you add anything?
Yeah, so field trips is what we do. We actually go out to the places that are doing what we're doing, not only to kind of check them out and see what they're working with, but also to raise the flag of ally, like, hey, maybe we have an event or something that we can't, or request that we can't fulfill. Now we can send them to you. And maybe you do the same thing in kind, right? So that's that side of it. I think on the other end of it is never assume that because you feel like the market is saturated, that it really is. Never make that assumption, because your perspective is always going to be different than the general public's. I think a good example of that is you never notice a certain type of car until you own that car. And as soon as you get that car, you see it everywhere. I'm sure it happens to everybody, right? It was always there. You just never had the focus on it. But then once you were in that space, now you had a different focus. You had a different level of awareness. A loose analogy, but the point here is just because you feel like it's saturated doesn't mean it is. And you have to go find out for sure if it is. And that may look like asking when you go do your field trip, what is business like? Just ask flat out. Maybe they don't tell you, but maybe they do, right? What's business been like? How's sales been? Or what's the price that you are able to rent for? Like, what's the consistent price? Are you seasonal? Like, ask all of these questions, but you're also looking at the environment. Like, what kind of environment is it? Is it classroom style? Is it very stuffy deliberately to be corporate? Or is it more laid back, more like the basement, the living room, right? And if you don't see something out there that looks and feels like a space you want to be in, then make that space. Then you've proved that there's a market for it for one person. Now you just need to go and figure out if there's a lot of other people that feel the same way, and specifically enough people that'll keep your idea in business for as long as you want to be in business.
Yep. Go ahead, Jamie.
So I have 2 questions. So my first question would be, so right now we're kind of like in the era where everybody wants to be on social media. Me personally, I feel like when you're going through like a certain situation, or you're really like in a dire need to upgrade something such as your credit report, you really won't have like the time or the mind frame to focus on social media. So basically my question is, could market research be something like a form of teaming up with like the Urban League or even Right Pat when they do their sessions, as far as teaching people how to raise their credit report, and kind of not stealing their audience, but kind of writing down, okay, this is how old this person is, this is the race of this person, the number of people that came to this type of event. Okay, would that be a good idea? And then secondly, what phase would you say you would have to complete if you wanted to team up with corporations like them to be a part of teaching classes with them or volunteering with them, so they can have you on their resource list when someone comes to them when they're in a dire need for that certain situation or service?
Can I jump on that first one?
Yeah.
So for the first part, I like to bring back up the car analogy, right? So now you're aware that this same type car is out there. Now, when you look at it, you're like, okay, what trim is it? What trim level is that car? It's the same car as mine, but which one is it? I would analogize that to you actually going to the spaces, like you said, and being in those spaces, because again, you're looking at this audience differently. You're looking at it from a perspective of what is lacking here and how can I fill that gap? So I would absolutely say put yourself into all of the experiences that are related to what you're trying to do. And this is for any field, any discipline. Put yourself in that space, show up, figure out how people are selling or providing that service, and then figure out how it's being consumed, how people are receiving it, and then get that gut feeling of like, what's really missing here? But you have to be in that space in order to really know that. That's the firsthand research. But then yes, taking advantage of the opportunity to talk to other individuals that have been moving and working in that space to figure out what that type of engagement is.
And then as far as the second question, you want to be past launch normally, because when you're dealing with like a corporation, it just depends on what type of level. So if you're talking about volunteering with them, maybe, you know, helping out here or there, then you don't necessarily need to be past launch. But if you're talking about partnering with them, you know, running a program for them, being a contractor on a program, then you're looking more so into a, you want to be outside of launch so that you can support whatever it is. One thing that we've learned about doing contracts with other corporations or bigger corporations is that one, a lot of times you really need to have the internal capacity to be able to take that on. And then two, being able to financially support, because when you start to deal with like an Urban League or an OSU, their pay is a little bit different. You know, they put you in a contract and then they really want to see results before they cut a check. That doesn't mean that they won't cut a check. It just means that a lot of it is done on reimbursement. So that's kind of a larger scale. But if you're talking about volunteering, I would do it ASAP so that you can get that market research. That's a part of market research. Yeah. Alicia, what was your question?
I didn't have a question. I was just, when Tiara was talking, I think Ski kind of touched on some points, but I was also going to say, like, sometimes when you do that market research, people will tell you that the market is saturated and make you feel like there's not room for more. But like Ski said, like, if you have an idea, and like just Tiara, you mentioning your thought, I was like, I have 10 people right now that I know, like I could send you and they would love like an event like that, where it's kind of just like over the top and everything's celebrated for them. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of point that out, I guess, is like, don't get discouraged if there are other people doing it. And then Jamie, you saw my little, they're amazing. They just got new kind of leadership and really, really love them. So I think they would be a great contact.
Yes, love it.
And I just thought too, you know, Tiara, to just hammer it home. If you're in the Columbus area, this is a growing ecosystem here. Like you can't build houses fast enough. So it's really hard to say saturation, you know, because it's going to continue to grow and you're going to get different types of people. My point is, you're not just dealing with people from Columbus anymore, right? So the folks that have nailed what an event space looks like for people from Columbus, that's not going to really cut it for the people coming from Atlanta, Chicago, the East Coast, the West Coast. So you still got a lot of room no matter what.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, Alyssa, you have one more thought?
I do have one more thought. Sorry. Like you mentioned growth and market research and all of that. And the one thing I think is really important. So I'm a planner, city planner background. You know, take a look at what like MORPC, Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Committee is doing and like where they're going to be putting this like rapid transit and all this stuff. Because if you are going to have an event space or a brick and mortar or something like that, you want to know it's going to be happening in 5 years. And so that's kind of part of it too, like step outside of what maybe is typical and yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Alicia, for that. Thank you all for joining us. Again, we will send out a recap so you guys will have access to the deck that you all seen, some links to resources that we mentioned, also a checklist as well. So like going through which the different phases of your business and just checking them off to make sure that you're good to go. And then also we have 2 workshops next week that I'll include in the follow-up email. And then our accelerator, we do have a couple of open spots right now that you all can hop into. So it will be information about that included in the email as well. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much for being able to pivot and do this online. I'm hoping next time we'll be able to safely see you in person. And I hope everyone has a really great rest of your evening. Enjoy being snowed in. So
Yes, everybody, I hope you stay safe, stay off the ice, don't fall. If you got to get in the car, grab the steering wheel first, okay? Grab the steering wheel as soon as you open the door. That's a lesson I learned many years ago. Just want to have an opportunity to pay for it. All right, thank you guys so much.
Have a good night.
Go bigger, dream bigger. You going bigger, gone. Yeah. Spread gems, not germs.